Hello, hola, bonjour. Tune in every Tuesday to the Dear God podcast.
¿Y qué pasó?
Nah, we talking like it's 1995. Let go of that Wi-Fi. Let's laugh and cry, but never say goodbye. Primos y Primas, que lo que, and welcome, bienvenidos to the Dear God, Are We There Yet? The podcast. Con tu prima favorita, soy Alicia Sanchez. And yes, this podcast is bilingual. Ahora, I have to give this little disclosure because Dear God in this context is for my movement is whatever or whomever you want it to be. That's right. It can be the universe, religious God, Buddha, self, nature, lo que sea para ti. Dear God, Are We There Yet? Is a lifestyle community of question seekers. The goal is simple: to empower thought-provoking conversation, share happiness, and encourage each of us to never stop asking questions and having conversations that matter. The power of helping people help people with one conversation at a time. Why? Because we need it. Our friends and families need it, and the world needs it. Ya tu sabe. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel where I talk about self-growth, budgets and business, and passion to empower. Ahora, vamos a hablar like it's 1995. I have an amazing special guest, Matthew Dickson, right? Dickson or Dickson? Okay. Yeah. And he's from Canada, which is awesome because I always love to hear people from all types of places from the world. And he's helping people in developing countries with mental health care. This is huge, especially since I come from Dominican Republic with my parents, and I've traveled the world and I've seen so much. But first, I know a little bit about you. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about you and who you are and what you do?
Well, I'm 47. I've spent my life in Canada, and I got schizophrenia in my early 20s, and the bulk of the last 25 years has been trying to get through that. The good news is that I'm back up on my feet again, and I'm incredibly happy about that. Mental illness is an absolute nightmare, and for years, though, what I've been trying to think about is, like, once I get back up on my feet, what can I do to give back? And I thought for years I'd be helping people in where I'm from in Canada or maybe other countries, but I didn't know it was so bad in developing countries until a couple of years ago. It was a random TED Talk I stumbled on by Vikram Patel, and it opened my eyes to what's going on in some countries. Yeah, some countries have one psychiatrist per million people, and there's over 270 million people in developing countries with no mental health care. And what's worse is that some people with mental illness are kept in chains. They're tied to a tree, to a bed, they have their foot through a log, and they have mental illness to go through as well. And not just that, they have all the problems of poverty to go through as well. And going through mental illness in Canada, it's got one of the best healthcare systems in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So, but even though I had some of the best healthcare, I felt like I was living in a war zone with my disease. It's just an absolute nightmare. And the whole time I was going through it, my heart just went out to people in war-torn countries or extreme poverty who have mental illness to go through as well. It's an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, and it's something, as I hear you speak, and I can see it. I mean, I used to go back home, and I even lived as an adult in Dominican Republic, and it's something where you're just like you're screaming to the top of your lungs, like, we need help. These are things that we are not seeing, and they're not being supportive, and there's a taboo around it. I want to ask you, in your research and just your personal situation, would you say that mental illness is more of something that's genetic or something that you've seen that instances or experiences have kind of taught us to kind of adapt these things? Like what in your experience, in your research, maybe with your personal, if you don't mind.
I'm not really sure. I know there's. Mm-hmm. I'm not an expert in that area.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that one of the things I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make this cause go viral. It's like most of the people I've talked to in the last 2 years that I've known about how bad it is in some developing countries.
Mm-hmm.
most people don't even know that it's happening. I say things like 1 psychiatrist per million people, and their eyebrows raise. And a lot of mental health professionals I talk to here in Canada, they don't know about it. Some people do, but the majority of people, like, they go like, really? And it makes sense. Like, people, I mean, when if they have no clean water, no schools, well, they probably, you start to think about it, well, they probably don't have any mental health care. So I think now that we're talking so much more about mental health, and I know we have further to go on that, and with the availability of the internet, I think the time is ripe for this cause to go viral. And there are people helping them. There's the largest international group helping them is called Basic Needs, and they're based out of England. And they're helping people on the ground, but they need a lot more help. And I'm thinking, if people today simply knew about this, they simply knew the cause was happening, I think millions of people would want to help out. But right now, most of the world doesn't even know it's happening.
Yeah, and and they don't see the bigger cause of it too. I mean, I think that, like, there is a taboo, and they think there's a cultural, like you said, with the chains. I know that there are some places, I mean, even in our backyard, I would say too. I mean, here in the States, there are places, of course, we have a lot more assistance, like you said. In Canada, they have they have a great healthcare system. Here, we don't have the best per se, but we have resources. You know what I mean? You can go to somewhere and you can get, like, counseling. But what do you think is the misconnect on why we are not speaking about these issues from an international level? Like, Basic Needs, first of all, I've never heard of them, and they're a nonprofit in England, like you said, and they're one of the largest international working in this field. Like, why do you feel like we're not focusing on this as much? Like, we should.
It boggles my mind. I don't know. I know we've had a long way in getting the developed world talking about mental illness, and we've made a long great headway on that. I know we still have a long way to go. And our mental health system, even though they're the best in the world in developed countries, they still have a lot of problems in them. So I don't know. I'm trying to do my part. I'm trying to give back and try to help. I'm new to this. My website went up about 10 months ago, and I'm trying to advocate for the cause. And I want to do this for the rest of my life. I believe I've found my calling, and it's amazing how it's focusing me on what I'm supposed to do. For most of my life, I've drifted in some ways. I mean, I did stuff. I was a straight A student, but I was still kind of drifting. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and that's, I think, common for many people. And it's amazing how this how it focuses you. Rick Hansen, he's the Canadian who wheelchaired around the world years ago. He said that if you want to create change in the world, attach to a cause larger than yourself and work towards that. And I'm doing that. I mean, I'm, in some ways, when I started this, and I was a nobody, I'm just starting to tell my story and tell the stories of, millions of people who have nothing. I'm trying to be a voice for them, because for years with schizophrenia, I didn't have a voice. I felt very helpless and voiceless in some ways, not being connected with the world. I know what it's like to just be put down in your own mind. And now that I'm getting my voice back, I'm starting to become able-bodied again. I'm trying to do something with that.
Yeah. How did you feel when you first, especially getting a diagnosis and then really digging deep and seeing that there is a possibility for you to, you can get better, you could live with this and help other people? How did you feel? Because there's a lot of people, I mean, we've talked about mental, illness and just help on this podcast. And a lot of people know someone or struggling, and they're trying to kind of come to terms, like, it's okay. If I have this, I'm gonna live my life. I can still be a great person in society. I can still have a voice. I can still have dreams. So how did you feel, and how do you cope with that? Like, to still do this, your calling?
Yeah, when I first got diagnosed, this was the mid-90s, so that's mental health was it was different back then, and we didn't have the internet. It was just starting. The internet was just being born. So I the disease at its worst, you really can't do anything. I mean, at my worst, I was curled up in a ball shaking. I didn't know if I was going to live or die from one moment to the next. It's a terrifying state to be in.
Mm-hmm.
And you just, I just kept clinging to hope. You just
Mm-hmm.
cling and cling and cling. And the level, one of the big things I want to tell people, for those who don't know what mental illness is like, is that if you had any idea the vast amount of courage, fortitude, determination, patience that you have inside you, that
Mm-hmm.
everyone has inside them, waiting to be used at a moment's notice, it would absolutely it would just amaze you. I didn't know I had so much inside me that I had ready to give, but I believe everyone has that. And if you,
Which you do have. I mean, you're doing it every day. And have you gone to, like, I know that you're involved with basic needs, and I'm actually on your website right now. Para todo el mundo, I'm just going to translate. Para todo el mundo que está pensando cómo él lo hizo y cómo lo está haciendo y cómo nosotros podemos ayudar a la otra gente que necesitan ayuda con la depresión o lo que sea que tiene mental. En el website de mindaid.ca Canada, porque es un website de Canada, se llama Basic Needs. And so tell me a little bit about how are you involved with Basic Needs, and like, are you thinking of maybe going to these countries and doing something hands-on? Like, what is your vision with helping and being a part of this, so that we can kind of see how we can get involved too, you know?
Yeah, to be honest, Basic Needs doesn't even know I exist, and I'm doing this for them yet. I haven't. I have sent them an email and a couple emails and a call. I didn't hear back from them, but I've been using some of their photos on my website. So, the model Basic Needs uses, and the World Health Organization uses the same model. They go into a community and they teach some of the people there how to give basic mental health care to those who need it. It's modeled after basic physical care programs. Like there's a guide called Where There Is No Doctor, and it's when there's no doctor around, how do you fix someone's broken leg or treat this or that, like physical ailments. And they created this same thing, like a basic mental health treatment. It's low cost. This model they use for basic mental health care is low cost. It's proven effective, and it's scalable. And they're trying to figure out how to roll it out to the masses. And Basic Needs was created in the year 2000, and I don't know. I'm trying to use my voice and tell people about this. It's the best we have. It's the best the world has, and yeah.
I see here that it says basically, for $14 a month, cost of helping one person through Basic Needs, and that is like, I mean, that is basically 2 drinks at Starbucks. That's nothing. You know what I mean? It's not something that, and we don't realize how something so small can go a long way for developing this assistance or just counseling. Well, I think we need to get their attention. So, I mean, I'm going to, you said it's basicneeds.org.
Yep.
Is their website, because even if they haven't reached out to you, it's always good to be a part of an organization, or just even putting your voice out there. You don't need a yes for you to do whatever you want to do. You know what I mean? You can just pick up and go. So I wanted to ask you another question about, is this something that, like, you, and I want to ask this, and you can answer it if not, but is this something that you said to yourself, like, how can I maybe help someone locally as well? Like, have you thought of doing some stuff in Canada as well, like bringing together a group of people to kind of to kind of help with Basic Needs? Like, have you thought of maybe bringing a community together for other people with like-minded, like yourself, maybe with the same illness that you have?
Yeah. I'm just one person, and I'll try to do as much as I can throughout my life. But I think if other people knew about this, they could see, like, Basic Needs is scalable. And so I'm trying to imagine the future. Like, will there be, like, right now there's a Basic Needs chapter in 14 countries, including the U.S. The U.S. has one.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, I'm trying to I'm trying to, I imagine, like, will there be many, many more basic needs chapters throughout the world? Will there be other people starting their own? I mean, look at clean water. Clean water has lots of different organizations helping them. And I picture mental health in developing countries the same way. And will there be different kinds of basic needs using similar models? Will one try to improve on a model? I don't know. But one of my main goals is just, if people knew about this, I mean, if this went viral, they would get, just think of the help they could get if people just simply knew about it. And so yeah, there is another group that I heard about just recently in the U.S. They're in Colorado. It's called mindfulwe.org. And they use the same model. The founder is Pavel Repo, R-E-P-P-O. It's mindful with 2 L's.
Okay.
So they're relatively new, and yeah, so I've contacted him, and yeah, I'm new to this. I'm working with some entrepreneurs where I'm from here, trying to raise money for the cause, and this is a new venture for me. So I'm yeah, we'll see where time takes us.
Yeah, and I love the mindful we. It says mental health for all, and I'm going to actually sign up to the newsletter and kind of, follow this. I mean, there's so many places around the world that we just, because we don't see it in front of our face every day, we kind of think, oh, it's not there, but it is important. And as humans, it's all about helping people help people at the end of the day. I mean, that not only makes you feel good, but at the same time, it helps us, our psyche, our being, and who we are. What would you say to someone listening that is struggling right now with mental health? What would you give advice to them?
Well, one of the big things I'd like to tell them is something I learned about a summer ago. There was a study done by people who jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, and most people die, but there are some survivors. And they asked the survivors, later on, like, what were you thinking the moment after you jumped, like when you were just past the point of no return? And they all said, I regretted it. I thought, why am I doing this? I shouldn't be doing this. And yeah, that hit me hard. Like I've never attempted suicide, but I was very close. Yeah. So I can't speak on that front to what it's like to say, no, I'm going to go do this and commit to it. But knowing that so many people regretted it, that is one of the big messages I wish more people knew about suicide, is that how many other people regretted doing it. And if people knew that ahead of time, how many lives could that save by people saying, well, maybe, it would stop them from attempting.
It would. And even if it's someone to talk to or someone to express to, those emotions, because if it's something that you're listening, if you know someone, it's just about hablando con ellos and just being there as someone to listen, not always judge or tell them, well, don't think like that, or tú eres loco, you're crazy, because that doesn't help anyone. My last question I want to ask, because I appreciate you being on the podcast so much, is if you could go back in time 5 years and tell your past self anything about the future, what would it be?
Wow, 5 years.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm thinking if I went back 25 years, I'd say it gets better. It gets better. That was when I was first diagnosed 25 years, and the pain that you feel that's so intense at the beginning. I know not everybody gets their mental illness cure, or not everyone gets better, but a lot of people do. And knowing that the pain will lessen as the years go on, or months go on, however long it is for the person, it gets better. So that pain you're feeling right now, even though it's so hard to see out of it, the pain will lessen, and it'll let you keep on going and putting one foot in front of the other and trying to get through the day. And things can get better a lot more than you think in those dark times.
Yeah, because you can't see it at the moment. I think we all go through that. It does, even if it's our regular, our road path in our lives, and we really can't see it. So we feel like, oh my God, this is it. So just telling ourselves, reminding it. I want to thank you so much, Matthew. This is something. It's a very sensitive topic for many people, but we need to hear it, and we thrive on hearing it because it makes us feel good knowing that someone else can talk about it, they can be open about it, and we can connect with them. So I appreciate you so much for being on the podcast. And for all our listeners, voy a tener the website and for mindaid.ca. He has a lot of information, especially under the resources and the donate, things that I've actually never heard about and never even thought. I mean, there's betterhelp.com, which there's convenient, affordable, private online counseling, which is like, wow, I never heard of it. And then there's some awesome articles out in there, including a TEDx, because I love TEDx, Vikram Patel. And Vikram Patel talks about why don't we care, and kind of like what you and I were talking in the beginning of this conversation. So I want to thank you again, and everyone check it out. And if you know someone who's going through this, or you might feel like you are suffering, or you feel there's just a misconnecting, you feel like when is this going to be over? When am I going to get better? Just know that it gets better. It might not, we don't know the perfection of like, oh my God, am I going to be 100% cured or whatever? No, just know that one step closer talking to someone and knowing that it will get better. Until next time, thank you so much. And you have a beautiful day. And I'm going to get involved, and we're going to go ahead and hashtag this away so that they can get to know that you have a voice. I appreciate you, Matthew, and you have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye, you guys, and we'll see you next time on Dear God, Are We There Yet? Bye.
Bye.